Elias had never thought he would be in the middle of a galactic crisis, wearing a suit he did not own, and standing in a palace that seemed to float among the stars. The walls glimmered with colors he could not name, and the floors shifted slightly beneath his feet as if the building were alive. He had come to Xithuria as a human diplomat, someone sent to negotiate, observe, and if possible, keep the fragile peace between alien civilizations. He had prepared for tense discussions, for debates over territory, resources, and trade routes, but never for the announcement that would change the galaxy and, strangely, his life. The council hall was enormous. Towering crystalline pillars reflected light in patterns that danced across the faces of alien dignitaries. Some of them had more than 2 eyes, others seemed to float slightly above the ground. Elias had learned quickly that staring was considered rude, yet he could not stop his curiosity. Every detail was fascinating. The intricate carvings on the walls, the faint hum of energy that pulsed from the floor, and the gentle but constant shifting of the palace itself, like a living organism adjusting to its inhabitants. At the center of this room stood Liara, the princess of Xithuria. She had the kind of presence that made even the most stoic alien pause. Her silver-blue skin seemed to glow faintly in the light, and her eyes, large, sharp, and intelligent, studied the assembly with a mixture of authority and grace. Elias had heard stories of her brilliance, how she had negotiated peace treaties at an age when most diplomats were still learning the basics, how she could predict the moves of political rivals before they even realized them, and how she had once led her people through a crisis without shedding a drop of blood. Now she was looking at him. "Humans," she said, her voice echoing slightly in the vast hall. "They are unpredictable, they are clever, they are fascinating." She paused, letting her gaze sweep over the gathered dignitaries, then returned it to Elias. "And sometimes they are exactly what we need." He straightened his shoulders, reminded himself that he was here to represent humanity, and tried not to fidget. "Your Highness," he began carefully, "I am here to negotiate as instructed by the Terran Council. I hope we can find common ground. Or perhaps preventing history from being destroyed. Their fleets are vast, their weapons devastating. They have crushed worlds that dared resist them. If they reach Xithuria, the galaxy may not survive." She paused, letting the weight of her words settle. "We must show strength, unity, and cleverness, and for that I require an unusual alliance." He had dealt with many strange political solutions before, but he sensed this one would be unlike anything he had faced. "I propose a union," Liara continued. "A marriage, but not a marriage in the usual sense. This will be a symbolic union between Xithuria and humanity. The galaxy must see that we are united. The Krill Dominion must believe we are stronger together." Elias stared at her, unable to process the words. A marriage, him, with a princess of an alien civilization. It sounded absurd, almost impossible. "Your Highness," Elias said slowly, trying to maintain composure. "I am honored by the trust you place in me, but this is a pretend union. Surely there are diplomats of Xithuria better suited for this role than me." "You underestimate the value of humanity. Your species is unpredictable. Where others would follow protocol, humans adapt. Where others would hesitate, you act. I need that quality. Not because of tradition, not because of politics, but because of necessity." She gestured to a holographic display that illuminated the hall. A massive map of the galaxy appeared, dotted with fleets, planets, and energy readings. "This is the Krill Dominion's fleet. They advance quickly, and their scouts have already reached our outer systems. We must create an impression of unity and strength, or worlds will fall before we can even respond. Your presence at this wedding will convince our allies, and our enemies, that humanity stands with Xithuria, and that we are prepared to fight together. You will be trained," she said. "You will learn our customs, our etiquette, and the proper way to appear as my partner. It will not be easy, but then the galaxy does not reward ease. Do you accept?" Or he could agree, stepping into an entirely unfamiliar world, risking embarrassment, danger, and perhaps worse. But the stakes were high. Planets could be destroyed. Millions of lives depended on him performing well. "I accept," he said finally, surprising even himself. Liara nodded. "Good, then we begin immediately." He was introduced to customs that seemed almost magical, formal gestures that conveyed respect, subtle shifts in posture that communicated agreement or dissent, and rituals that had been performed for generations. Every meal, every meeting, every movement was scrutinized, corrected, and perfected. He stumbled often. At first, he tripped over his words, misread cues, and made gestures that were inappropriate by Xithurian standards. One evening, he accidentally bowed too low during a reception, causing a minor scandal among some dignitaries. Liara, however, remained patient. "Humans learn differently," she explained quietly, "but you learn, that is what matters." Slowly, he began to notice patterns. He learned to anticipate what the aliens expected, to read the subtle shifts in their expressions, and to find ways to adapt while remaining true to his instincts. Sometimes, those instincts worked better than tradition. When an alien official tried to trap him in a convoluted debate, Elias thought quickly, using logic and a touch of humor to diffuse the tension. The room had been impressed, not by protocol, but by cleverness. Liara watched these moments carefully. She began to rely on him, to trust that his human intuition could solve problems that centuries of alien tradition could not. In private, she would occasionally ask his opinion, valuing his perspective even when it defied expectation. Elias began to see a side of her few ever witnessed: curiosity, respect, and even admiration for humanity's unpredictable strength. Despite the intense training, Elias found moments of humor and warmth. He laughed with Liara's advisors over stories of human misunderstandings, joked about the strangeness of alien fashion, and even convinced a few skeptical dignitaries that his human solutions were worthy of consideration. Slowly, he was becoming not just a guest in the palace, but a valued presence. One evening, as the twin moons of Zithuria rose over the palace gardens, Liara walked with Elias along the reflective pools that mirrored the stars. "Do you know why I chose you?" she asked suddenly. Elias shook his head. "Because humans are different. You do not follow tradition blindly. You improvise, you adapt, and you act. The Krill Dominion will never predict what you will do. That makes you valuable. That makes you necessary. That is why you are here." Invitations were sent, preparations continued, and rumors of the wedding spread among the galaxy's factions. Some were skeptical, some amused, and some terrified. Elias knew that every step he took would be watched, analyzed, and remembered. One misstep could jeopardize the entire plan. On the eve of the ceremony, Elias stood alone on the balcony, looking out at the swirling colors of space. He could see fleets moving in distant systems, alien worlds preparing for possible conflict, and the faint glow of distant stars that reminded him of home. Somewhere far away, humanity was waiting, unaware of how pivotal this moment would become. Liara joined him silently. She did not speak at first, simply placing a hand on his shoulder. Elias felt a strange comfort in her presence, an acknowledgement that despite the alien surroundings, he was not alone in this. "Tomorrow, we begin," she said softly. "And when we do, the galaxy will see humans in a way they never have before." He had no idea how the next hours would unfold, what challenges awaited him, or how he would manage the delicate balance between pretending and acting. But one thing was certain: humanity was about to make its mark on the galaxy, and he was at the center of it. As the palace lights reflected on the calm pools below, Elias felt a strange mixture of fear, excitement, and determination. Whatever happened next, he would face it as a human, and perhaps that was the greatest strength of all. The morning of the training session began with a flurry of activity. Elias had quickly realized that pretending to be a royal partner was not just about manners. It was about appearances, timing, and intuition that went far beyond what he had ever imagined. Every step he took, every word he spoke, every gesture he made was under scrutiny, and yet he felt a spark of excitement. For the first time, he was doing something that mattered on a scale he could hardly comprehend. Liara stood at the center of the training hall, her silver-blue skin glowing faintly under the light of the crystalline ceiling. She had prepared a series of lessons for Elias, everything from formal introductions to the subtleties of alien etiquette. The hall was filled with objects Elias had never seen: floating orbs that projected holograms of galactic maps, devices that measured his posture and tone, and recordings of previous royal ceremonies. It was overwhelming, but also fascinating. "Remember," Liara said, her voice calm but firm, "the Krill Dominion will judge us not just by our fleet or our weapons, but by our unity. If we can make our partnership believable, it will inspire confidence in our allies and sow doubt in our enemies. That is our greatest weapon." He had trained in negotiation, diplomacy, and human strategy before, but nothing had prepared him for the subtle complexities of alien social systems. A misplaced gesture could cause offense, a wrong tone could suggest weakness, and yet he realized there was also opportunity. Humans were creative, adaptable, and unpredictable. That might give him an advantage where the aliens expected only strict protocol, Their first exercise was simple, or so it seemed. Elias was to greet a group of alien diplomats in a formal reception, demonstrating his ability to follow customs. The aliens would observe, and Liara would judge his performance. He took a deep breath and entered the reception hall. The room was alive with movement and conversation, with dignitaries of various shapes and sizes floating, gliding, or walking across the polished floors. Some had skin that shimmered like precious metals, others had eyes that could see in multiple directions at once. Elias reminded himself not to stare. He approached the first diplomat, a tall figure with 4 arms and a mouth that could expand into a wide, expressive smile. Elias mimicked the gestures Liara had taught him, bowing and extending his hands in the proper pattern. The diplomat studied him for a moment, then inclined their head in acknowledgement. Elias exhaled silently. That had gone well. Next came a group of dignitaries who communicated not with words, but with subtle vibrations emitted through small devices on their wrists. Elias had to respond with precisely timed movements to signal understanding and respect. He fumbled once, his hands moving too quickly, but corrected himself in time. A small nod from Liara reassured him. By the end of the reception, Elias was exhausted but exhilarated. He had survived the first trial, and more importantly, he had begun to feel a connection to this alien world. There was a rhythm to the customs, a logic that he could learn, and a beauty in the precision. It was different from humanity, yes, but it was not impossible to understand. Afterward, Liara led him to a quiet garden within the palace. The space was unlike any garden on Earth. Trees with crystalline leaves reflected light in dazzling patterns, and streams of water floated above the ground, suspended by invisible forces. The scent was faintly sweet, calming, and the soft hum of energy from the palace filled the air like a gentle melody. "You are improving," Liara said, her voice softer now. "But etiquette alone is not enough. You must also understand perception. The Krill Dominion will not be convinced by gestures alone. They will look for subtle cues of character, confidence, and intelligence. Humans possess qualities that many alien species lack: intuition, creativity, the ability to think in ways others do not. You must use that. Show them that humans are clever, adaptable, and resourceful. That is more persuasive than any protocol." He had always thought of human ingenuity as something simple, problem-solving, improvisation. But in this context, it became a strategic weapon. The thought excited him. The next few days were filled with rigorous preparation. Elias learned to navigate formal dinners where every movement, every sip of water, every tilt of the head carried meaning. He practiced walking alongside Liara in ways that conveyed partnership and mutual respect, and he trained in public speaking so that his voice would project confidence and assurance. Yet, it was not all protocol. Liara introduced him to problem-solving exercises designed to simulate real crises. In one, a holographic simulation projected a Krill attack on a nearby system. Elias had to coordinate with alien commanders, making quick decisions to defend planets and civilians. He relied not on tradition, but on instinct, human logic, pattern recognition, and improvisation. His solutions often surprised the alien observers, some of whom muttered in disbelief at the effectiveness of his methods. Liara watched closely, occasionally stepping in to guide him, but often letting him lead. "This is why I chose you," she said one evening after a particularly challenging exercise. "You act where others hesitate. You adapt where others follow rules blindly. That is what the galaxy needs." He joked with Liara's advisors about the oddities of human behavior, shared stories of life on Earth, and even managed to teach them a few simple games. Laughter echoed through the palace corridors, a rare sound in the otherwise formal halls, and Elias felt a sense of belonging he had not expected. One afternoon, as he was practicing formal greetings with a group of alien children, descendants of noble families, he noticed a small incident that reminded him why humans were unique. A child had accidentally dropped a ceremonial artifact, a delicate object that could shatter with a single touch. The other children froze, expecting a reprimand. Elias acted instinctively. He reached out, caught the object, and steadied it, all in a smooth motion that seemed almost effortless. The children stared at him wide-eyed and then laughed, relieved. Liara, observing nearby, smiled. "See," she said, "that is human adaptability. That is what sets you apart. You do not panic, you act, and often that is enough to inspire confidence." It was not enough to follow the rules. He had to demonstrate qualities that aliens admired but often could not replicate. Humans were resourceful, quick-thinking, and brave in ways that transcended protocol. He could use that. He had to. As the wedding day approached, the palace became a hive of preparation. Artists, designers, and diplomats worked tirelessly to create an event that would impress allies and intimidate enemies. Elias spent hours rehearsing, learning to navigate ceremonial spaces, to greet dignitaries, and to participate in rituals that had been performed for centuries. Every day was exhausting, but he felt a growing sense of purpose. One evening, Liara invited him to the observation deck, a space that offered a breathtaking view of the galaxy. Star systems sparkled like diamonds against the black velvet of space, and distant fleets moved in formations that seemed almost choreographed. "The galaxy is watching," she said softly, her eyes reflecting the distant stars. "Tomorrow, everything changes. Our enemies will see unity. Our allies will see strength, and you will show them what humanity can do." Humanity's ingenuity, courage, and adaptability would be on display for the entire galaxy. That night, as he lay in his quarters, Elias thought about the journey so far. He had learned alien customs, impressed skeptical dignitaries, and survived rigorous training exercises. He had laughed, he had stumbled, and he had begun to earn the trust of a princess whose reputation for brilliance was known across star systems. And yet, he knew that the most challenging moments were still ahead. The pretend wedding was only the beginning. Soon, he would stand beside Liara in front of the galaxy, a symbol of unity and human capability. He would need to remain composed, clever, and courageous. And he would need to trust himself, trust that his human instincts, adaptability, and determination could succeed where even centuries of alien tradition might fail. As dawn broke over the crystalline towers of the palace, Elias took a deep breath. He was ready, or as ready as anyone could be in a situation that defied imagination. He had trained, learned, and grown. He had become more than a visitor in this alien world. He had become a participant, a partner, and a symbol. And when the day came, when the galaxy watched him walk beside Liara, he would show them what it truly meant to be human. The day of the wedding arrived, and the palace was alive with energy. Guests from countless star systems filled the grand halls, their appearances and forms more diverse than Elias had ever seen. Some floated on anti-gravity platforms, their robes shimmering with embedded lights. Others had wings that fluttered softly as they moved. Elias had spent weeks preparing for this moment, yet even with all his training, he felt a ripple of nervous excitement coursing through him. Liara appeared beside him, her silver-blue skin glowing softly under the palace lights. She wore a ceremonial gown that seemed to shimmer with the colors of distant nebulae. Her hair flowed like liquid silver, perfectly arranged, and her eyes held a calm confidence. For Elias, she was both a guide and a reminder of the responsibility he carried. "You are ready," she said, her voice steady but warm. "Remember everything we practiced: confidence, composure, and cleverness. Your instincts will guide you when rules fail. Trust yourself." He straightened his posture, adjusted his ceremonial attire, and followed her into the grand hall. The assembled dignitaries turned as they entered, and a hush fell over the room. Every eye was on them, every movement analyzed, every gesture weighed. Elias felt the weight of observation, but also the unique opportunity he had to show humanity's ingenuity on a scale no human had ever faced. The ceremony began with formal rituals. Liara moved with perfect grace, her gestures precise and commanding. Elias did his best to match her, following the intricate patterns of bowing, hand movements, and symbolic gestures he had memorized. At first, he was stiff, aware of every movement, but gradually he relaxed, letting his human intuition guide him. It was during the exchange of ceremonial vows that Elias truly felt the significance of their act. Words flowed, translated into the various languages of the galaxy through advanced devices, each phrase carefully chosen to convey unity and respect. Elias spoke slowly, deliberately, emphasizing sincerity over perfection. He could see the effect. Alien delegates exchanged impressed glances, nodding in acknowledgement. Humanity's presence was being noticed, and it was not going unnoticed for its unpredictability and honesty. Just as the ceremony reached its peak, a sudden alarm echoed through the palace. Red lights flashed, and the hum of the crystalline pillars intensified. A distant projection revealed what no one had hoped for. A Krill Dominion strike team had infiltrated the palace's outer defenses. The attackers were small in number but highly skilled, their ships weaving through the palace's shielded corridors with lethal precision. Chaos threatened to erupt, but Elias' instincts kicked in. While some guests froze, uncertain of protocol in a crisis, he moved with decisive action. He guided nearby attendants to safety while scanning the situation for tactical advantage. His mind, trained in strategy and improvisation, calculated the positions, weaknesses, and patterns of the enemy in real time. Liara noticed his composure. "Human," she said, her tone tight with tension, "what are you planning?" "Trust me." During the chaos, Elias noticed a group of dignitaries attempting to flee into a corridor that would have led directly into the attackers. Without hesitation, he intercepted them, using his voice and body language to redirect them safely. One elder alien, skeptical of humans, stared at him wide-eyed. "You act without fear," the alien said. "Remarkable." The palace security, trained for standard protocol, was initially surprised by his unconventional approach, but they adapted quickly under his direction. Finally, after what felt like hours but was only minutes, the strike team was neutralized. The palace was secure, the guests unharmed, and the ceremonial proceedings could continue. A cheer erupted among some of the delegates, others murmured in admiration, and Liara gave Elias a small, approving nod. "You see," she said softly, once the immediate threat had passed. "This is why you were chosen. Humanity's unpredictability and quick thinking. It saves lives where rigid protocol fails." He had acted instinctively, relying on training, strategy, and intuition. And it had worked. The crisis had shown the galaxy that humans were not only capable partners, but also crucial allies in moments of danger. The ceremony resumed. Elias and Liara completed the remaining rituals with renewed confidence. Where once he had been uncertain, now he moved with purpose, guided by instinct and observation. Delegates who had been skeptical of a human in such a role now watched with respect, many even smiling at the clever solutions Elias had demonstrated. As the ceremony concluded, Liara and Elias stood together before the assembly. She spoke first, her voice carrying across the hall. "Today, we have shown not only unity, but ingenuity, courage, and adaptability. The Krill Dominion will see that humanity is not a species to be underestimated. Together, we can protect this galaxy, not just with power, but with intelligence, creativity, and the willingness to act when action is needed most." It was the moment he had trained for, the moment his instincts and preparation had converged to make a tangible difference. After the ceremony, Liara led Elias through the reception halls, introducing him to dignitaries who had once doubted his presence. Each introduction reinforced the impression of unity and respect. Elias listened, responded thoughtfully, and occasionally demonstrated human humor and creativity, further impressing the assembly. Later, as the crowds thinned, Elias and Liara stood together overlooking the palace gardens. The twin moons of Zithuria bathed the crystalline leaves in gentle light, and the floating streams shimmered like liquid stars. For a moment the weight of the day lifted, replaced by quiet reflection. "You did exceptionally well," Liara said. "More than anyone could have expected. Humanity is now seen as a partner worthy of respect across the galaxy. But you acted when others might have hesitated. You showed courage, creativity, and decisiveness. That is something few species can claim." He had relied on instinct, cleverness, and courage, and in doing so had saved lives and inspired confidence. Yet, as he reflected on the day's events, he also felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. The pretend wedding had worked. The galaxy now saw humans as capable partners, but that success brought new challenges. The political momentum created by the ceremony meant that reversing the union would not be simple. The galaxy had seen what humans could do, and some would insist that this partnership be permanent. Elias realized that the adventure was far from over. He had proven humanity's worth, but now he had to navigate the complex world of interstellar politics, alien expectations, and royal duties. The pretend wedding had saved the galaxy, but it had also bound him in ways he had not anticipated. Despite this, he felt a quiet determination. Humanity had shown its value, and he had played a central role. He would continue to act with intelligence, courage, and adaptability, facing whatever challenges lay ahead. For the first time, he truly understood what it meant to be a human in a galaxy that had never fully recognized his species' potential. As he stood beside Liara, watching the stars and reflecting on the day, Elias made a silent promise to himself. He would meet every challenge, protect every life he could, and continue to prove that humanity's ingenuity, courage, and determination could shape the destiny of the galaxy. Tomorrow, he knew, would bring new challenges. But tonight, he allowed himself a rare moment of satisfaction. The pretend wedding had succeeded. The galaxy had witnessed humanity's brilliance, and Elias had taken the first step toward a destiny far greater than he had ever imagined. The days following the wedding were a whirlwind of activity. Elias barely had time to rest as delegations from across the galaxy arrived to congratulate the new union between humanity and Zithuria. Every interaction was a test, a chance to show that humans could stand alongside one of the galaxy's most advanced civilizations. And Elias was determined to prove that humanity's ingenuity, courage, and adaptability were more than just rumors. They were real. At first, the palace was a celebration of unity. Aliens from dozens of systems mingled in the vast halls, sharing stories, technology, and ideas. The energy was electric, a mix of admiration, curiosity, and cautious optimism. Elias moved among them, careful to follow the customs he had learned, yet using his human instincts to navigate conversations and diffuse tension when misunderstandings arose. His presence was unusual, but it commanded respect. Liara watched him closely. "You are doing well," she said one evening as they walked through the palace gardens. "Many expected humans to be clumsy, awkward, or naive. Instead, you've impressed them with thoughtfulness and skill. It is remarkable." "I only try to do what I think is right," he said. "I never imagined it would have this effect." "That is a rare and valuable gift." He joined Liara in the strategy room, a chamber filled with holographic projections of star systems, fleet movements, and planetary defenses. The Council of Zithuria was already present, along with human advisors and a few representatives from allied systems. The tension was thick, but Elias felt a strange clarity. He studied the projections, analyzing the Krill fleet's likely paths, weapon ranges, and possible weaknesses. "If we concentrate our defenses here," he said, pointing to a cluster of vulnerable outposts, "and create diversions with smaller strike units, we can force their main fleet to slow down. That gives us time to mobilize reinforcements and protect key systems." His ability to adapt, improvise, and predict outcomes impressed everyone. For the first time, many of the alien leaders began to see humans as equals in strategy and courage. The battle began before dawn. Fleets moved silently through the void, sensors tracking every ship. The Krill Dominion had underestimated the combined forces of Zithuria and humanity, and Elias' strategy created confusion among their ranks. Smaller human strike units executed daring maneuvers, drawing enemy ships into traps while main fleets fortified defensive positions. Elias remained in the command chamber, coordinating efforts and adjusting plans in real time. He relied on intuition and pattern recognition, skills that humans often used in ways alien logic could not predict. When an enemy squadron attempted a surprise flanking maneuver, Elias immediately redirected forces, exploiting their blind spots and forcing them into a carefully planned ambush. Liara observed, impressed by his decisiveness. "Human ingenuity," she murmured. "It is as I thought." Despite the triumph, Elias was aware of the complications that followed. The success of the wedding and the battle had political consequences. Factions across the galaxy now looked to him as more than a temporary partner. Some saw him as a symbol of unity. Others began advocating that the union be made permanent. Back in the palace, advisors and dignitaries discussed the implications. "We cannot undo what has been done," one elder alien stated. "The people have witnessed the human's leadership. To separate him from the princess now would be to dishonor our new alliance." Humans had saved lives, inspired allies, and proven their worth, but that success meant he could no longer return to Earth as if nothing had changed. Liara approached him later, sensing his unease. "I know this is not what you expected," she said. "The galaxy does not easily forget heroism or leadership. You acted decisively when it mattered most. That is why some insist you remain. And now you have the chance to shape the future, not just for Zithuria, but for humanity and countless other worlds." He was part of something far larger than himself, and humans were now recognized as a species capable of heroism and ingenuity on a galactic scale. The following weeks were filled with meetings, councils, and preparations for future challenges. Elias navigated them with care, using diplomacy, insight, and occasionally a touch of human creativity to solve problems that seemed impossible. He found allies in unexpected places, diplomats who had once doubted him, military commanders who had resisted his plans, and even minor factions who now sought guidance from the human who had stood beside a princess and saved the galaxy. Through it all, Liara remained a steady presence. She did not control him, nor did she treat him as subordinate. Instead, she respected his input, trusted his judgment, and allowed him to act in ways that were uniquely human. Together, they became a symbol of unity, a blend of tradition and innovation, of alien sophistication and human creativity. Despite the successes, Elias could not ignore the personal cost. He missed Earth, his family, and the familiarity of home. He had been thrust into a world of alien politics, ceremonial expectations, and dangerous conflicts. And yet, he had learned to thrive. Humanity's ability to adapt, think creatively, and act decisively had allowed him to succeed where others might have failed. One evening, as the twin moons of Zithuria cast their soft light over the palace gardens, Elias reflected on the journey so far. He had arrived as a diplomat, a stranger in an alien world. He had been chosen for a symbolic role, trained in alien customs, and thrust into the heart of a galactic conflict. He had faced danger, inspired allies, and proven humanity's worth. And now he stood at a crossroads: continue as a temporary partner in a political alliance, or accept that his actions had bound him to a larger destiny. Liara joined him quietly. "You are thinking too much," she said gently, though her eyes betrayed a hint of understanding. "You have done well. The galaxy respects you. The question now is, what will you do with that respect?" Or he could embrace the responsibility he had earned, using his influence to protect lives, shape alliances, and demonstrate humanity's potential to the galaxy. "I think," he said slowly, "that humans have a role to play here, not as guests, not as observers, but as active participants. We can help protect the galaxy, and maybe even make it better." "Then you understand why I chose you. Not for ceremony alone, but for vision, courage, and the ability to act when action is needed. You have shown all of these qualities. Now, the galaxy expects you to continue showing them." The political consequences of the wedding were complex, but he knew he could navigate them. Humanity had proven its value, and he would continue to act as a symbol, a partner, and a protector. The palace was quiet now, the celebrations settled into routines, and the galaxy had seen the proof of human ingenuity. But Elias knew that challenges were far from over. New threats, new alliances, and new responsibilities awaited him, and yet he felt ready. He had faced danger, solved problems, and inspired trust. He had acted decisively when others hesitated. He had proven that humans were more than capable, more than clever. They were essential. As he stood beside Liara, the weight of destiny pressing upon him, Elias made a silent promise. He would continue to rise to the challenges ahead. He would act with intelligence, courage, and creativity, and he would ensure that humanity's place in the galaxy was not temporary but enduring. The pretend wedding had saved the galaxy. It had also set the stage for a future far larger than Elias had imagined. And as the twin moons reflected on the palace gardens, he understood that while he might be trapped by royal destiny, it was a destiny he could embrace and shape, with all the ingenuity, courage, and resourcefulness that only a human could offer. The days turned into weeks after the victory against the Krill Dominion. The palace, which had once been a place of celebration, had transformed into a center of political maneuvering. Delegates from across the galaxy arrived with requests, proposals, and advice, all recognizing the influence that Elias, the human, now carried. What had begun as a pretend wedding had become a symbol of unity, and the galaxy was watching closely. Elias moved through the halls with purpose, balancing ceremonial duties, strategic meetings, and diplomatic negotiations. Each step, each word was now more than a gesture. It carried meaning, weight, and the potential to shape the galaxy's future. At first, he had been uncertain, even anxious about the role he had been thrust into. Now he understood that humanity's adaptability and courage were being tested on a scale he could not have imagined. Liara remained at his side, guiding him with quiet confidence. She no longer needed to explain every custom or expectation. Elias had learned, adapted, and begun to take initiative. Together, they were not just a symbol of unity. They were a team, a force that could inspire, protect, and lead. One morning, a fleet of ambassadors arrived from distant systems, each representing planets that had suffered under Krill attacks. They had witnessed the recent battle reports and were eager to discuss alliances, trade agreements, and military cooperation. The discussions were tense. Many had lingering doubts about humans, questioning whether a single species could truly contribute to galactic stability. Elias took a deep breath and addressed the room. "Humans are not perfect," he began, his voice steady, "but we have qualities that can make a difference. We adapt quickly, think creatively, and act decisively when needed. We have proven this in battle, and we will continue to prove it in partnership with all of you. Together, we can prevent future attacks, protect innocent lives, and build a galaxy that values intelligence, courage, and cooperation." Elias realized then that humans were not just participants in galactic politics. They could lead, inspire, and make decisions that others might overlook. As the discussions continued, Liara whispered, "You have a gift, human, not just courage, but clarity. The galaxy listens to you because you speak truth with intelligence and conviction." "I didn't do this alone," he said. "You guided me, and I learned. Together, we've made something stronger than either of us could have done alone." A system on the edge of Zethurian space had reported suspicious activity. A Krill scout fleet, small but dangerous, was approaching. The system's defenses were weak, and the local leaders were panicked. Elias immediately took charge. Using the human combination of instinct, strategy, and quick adaptation, he coordinated with alien commanders to set up defenses, establish communication lines, and evacuate civilians if necessary. When the Krill scouts arrived, Elias' plan worked perfectly. Traps, diversions, and calculated maneuvers allowed the defenders to neutralize the threat without significant loss. The local leaders, once doubtful of human ability, were now praising him and asking for further guidance. The incident became another example of human ingenuity, further solidifying humanity's place in the galaxy. As evening fell, Elias found himself on the palace balcony, looking out at the stars. The twin moons cast a soft glow over the crystalline towers, and distant fleets glimmered as they moved between systems. It was breathtaking, and yet Elias knew that beauty came with responsibility. He had been brought here to help, and now the galaxy had come to rely on him. Liara joined him silently. She placed a hand on his shoulder, a gesture of both reassurance and partnership. "You have done more than I could have imagined," she said. "The galaxy respects humans now, but there is something you must decide." The pretend wedding saved the galaxy, but it also created a reality that cannot easily be undone. You have the choice to embrace it or to step back. But understand this, your presence has changed the galaxy. Humans are now seen as leaders, protectors, and essential allies. If you leave, that influence may fade. He missed the familiarity, the simplicity, and the safety, but he also thought of the lives saved, the alliances strengthened, and the trust he had built. Humanity had been given a chance to prove its value, and he was at the center of that proof. "I cannot ignore what humanity has achieved here," he said finally. "I cannot leave now, not when we have made a difference. If I stay, I can help continue that progress, protect the galaxy, and show the true potential of humans. That is worth more than anything I left behind. You have all of these qualities, and now you are ready to shape the future, not just for Zithuria, but for all of humanity." He discovered new methods for coordinating fleets, developing emergency response systems, and even fostering cultural understanding among species that had long been suspicious of one another. Everywhere he went, humans were recognized as problem solvers, innovators, and essential partners. One day, a high-ranking delegate approached him with a proposal. "The galaxy has never seen a human act with such decisiveness," the delegate said. "We request your guidance, not just as a partner of the princess, but as a strategist, a leader, and a symbol of what humanity can achieve. Will you accept this responsibility?" They had faced impossible odds, solved problems no one else could, and inspired trust across the stars. And he had been the one to show it. "I accept," he said, his voice steady. "Not for glory, not for ceremony, but because it is what humanity can offer and what the galaxy deserves. And we will honor the partnership you have shown with the Princess of Zithuria." And Elias had become a symbol of what humanity could achieve. Liara turned to him. "Do you understand now?" she asked. "Your actions have changed the galaxy. You have proven that humans are more than capable, more than clever, they are essential, and that is only the beginning. I will continue to act with courage, intelligence, and creativity. I will protect lives, strengthen alliances, and show the galaxy the true potential of humanity. And I will do it not alone, but alongside you and our allies." The stars shimmered, fleets moved, and distant worlds awaited guidance, protection, and hope. Elias felt the weight of destiny, but it was no longer a burden. It was an opportunity, a chance to show what humans could do when given trust, responsibility, and the freedom to act. The pretend wedding had saved the galaxy. It had also forged a bond that could not be broken, a partnership that had proven stronger than tradition or expectation. Elias had been trapped by royal destiny, but in that destiny he had found purpose, courage, and a path forward. He took a deep breath, standing beside Liara, and looked out at the galaxy that now depended on him. He was a human, far from home, in a universe full of unknowns. And yet he had learned something vital. Humanity's greatest strength was not technology, not numbers, nor sheer power. It was ingenuity, adaptability, and courage. And with those qualities, Elias knew there was nothing the galaxy could not face. The night was calm, the palace quiet, and the stars endless. For the first time, Elias allowed himself to feel hope, not just for humanity, not just for Zithuria, but for the galaxy as a whole. He had embraced his role, proven his worth, and discovered that humans could truly make a difference among the stars. And as he stood there beside Liara, ready to face whatever challenges awaited, he understood that this was only the beginning. The galaxy had been saved, but the future was still unwritten. And humanity, guided by courage, creativity, and determination, would play a vital part in writing it. Elias smiled faintly. The pretend wedding had become real in ways he could never have imagined. And now, he was ready to lead, to protect, and to show the universe what humans could truly accomplish.